Welcome to another edition of the Corner Booth Podcast here from the Stoughton Deli. I'm Aaron Rand, along with Bill Brownstein of the Montreal Gazette and our, I guess we can say, friend, Pietro Paletti. We've done enough of these, we've become that way. Former Montreal police detective, lieutenant detective, worked in organized crime for more than 30 years. Thank you for coming back. And we're going to talk about something that is actually relevant as of today, the day you were here. This is a Friday, the day that... I'm sure you know this by now. We talked about this just a few moments ago. There has been a call, if you will, for global protest over what's going on right now, and this is called by the folks at Hamas. And I think it's fair to say Montrealers are anxious. They're on edge today, hoping that nothing happens. We were just chatting, and I want you to sort of follow up on this with respect to, are police in the city doing enough? If not, what should have been done, and what should be done now?
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to the Jewish community for the barbaric acts committed by the Hamas. Now, is the city ready? I don't think anybody was ready for this. Do they have the resources? They do, especially if they call upon the SQ and the RCMP. And I would think this is not a one-day affair. It's going to go on for weeks or months. They have to... reanalyze everything if they do bring the army or call out for extra resources because we're definitely not ready now in Montreal with the amount of police officers that we have. And
okay, let me stop you there. So with the amount of police officers that we have, part of the contention here has been we have too many police officers. Why are you saying we don't have enough? Is it enough not to handle if something happens here, or enough that they should have acted quicker? Is this the police chief's fault? Where do you draw the fault here?
I don't think it's the police chief's directly his fault, but there's a movement of defunding the police. And in the past week...
That's gone out the window.
That's gone out the window. It's going to be backbenched. And just 3 days ago, the mayor stated that she was going to cut funds to the police, which I think was ridiculous, especially during this horrible period. But presently, they haven't been hiring. I think Montreal, the way they calculate the amount of officers needed, we're about 800 short. Now, one could question, the Montreal Police Department has way too many chiefs and sitting in headquarters and too many other functions that police officers shouldn't be doing. Maybe recuperate those officers and put them back on the streets, but that is going to create a mayhem with the brotherhood. One has to understand the police chief has limited powers. The Brotherhood of Montreal is very, very powerful. And
the mayor's plea, notwithstanding that we should all practice peace and love, that notwithstanding, the fact is that are our police equipped psychologically to deal with situations? These are very young cops. They've never experienced anything like this, more than likely. They'll be thrown in between rallies, between, pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian groups. They're somewhere in the middle. These are issues that are far removed from their lives. You think they're capable dealing with this on an emotional level, intellectual level?
I think when somebody joins emotionally or psychologically, they're prepared. You can never be 100% prepared for certain events. However, we have specialized groups. It's just to deploy them. We need the leadership to deploy them. 24 on 24, protect the synagogues, and call for help from outside agencies, meaning other law enforcement agencies. I'll give you an example. If in Toronto there was the G20 a few years back, they called officers from all over the country to assist them. Well, in certain areas of Quebec, I'll give you an example, Three Rivers, Chibougamau, or other small cities, we could recruit police officers to come and assist the Montreal Police Force, and of course the SQ, the RCMP, who have the resources financially and physical resources. And let's use the military also. We have this idea. In Europe, all the synagogues and Jewish communities are fortresses.
Year-round.
Year-round.
Yeah.
And especially now, I could talk for Italy in Rome. The Prime Minister sent out immediately, 10 minutes following the attack.
So your suggestion is we're not taking this seriously enough?
I don't think so, no. It's this laissez-faire attitude we have in Quebec and also in Canada. And we're very reactive, not pragmatic, in the sense that we don't foresee things coming.
How much of this has to do with the fact, and I know we talked about this the first time you were here, has to do with the fact that we seem to be relying too much on computers and software and simulations as opposed to actually having police on the street, embedded maybe in communities? You're suggesting that's a big
That's
problem.
a big problem between a paradox between the conventional way of doing things and the new methods used with the technology and cybersecurity. But at the end of the day, and it's happened, intelligence-based information gathering, you're supposed to be on the streets. Officers have to be in contact, not with the local priest or rabbi, with the criminals, and going and knock on their doors every day, or at least showing their faces where they hang out. And that is a problem we have. We have to stop. It's great to have community days, sharing coffee with people in a metro system or a donut, whatever. But I think police work is to arrest the perpetrators of crime and crime prevention, and we got to get back to it.
We were talking about money and defunding. What, in essence, you're proposing is the year-round security, not just like a day, one day. There is stories come. The budget as is being.
I think like I mentioned, we have a couple of hundred police officers doing community policing. What community policing is, we got to call a spade, is going to, organisms, the old age club here and there. I don't think that's the role of the police officers. I think putting these individuals back on the street would help, especially if you could recruit a couple of hundred.
But, to your point, we seem to be seeing more and more and more of that. You have a police chief now who made that part of his mandate before he became the Montreal police chief, community policing, meeting those groups, and is trying to carry that over into his job here. You think that's the wrong approach?
I think community policing is the right approach. But we have to understand that criminals are part of our community. This is where it's swayed a bit. And yes, I may come across as hardcore, but policing is not police officers aren't trained to be psychologists or social workers. They're there to uphold the law.
But that's changing. That now at Nicolet, for example, there's more time being spent on doing exactly that. Is that a good idea or a bad idea, in your opinion?
I think it's a good idea and a bad idea also.
Okay.
We got to set our priorities. What are the priorities that we have now? Is that the city's out of control with crime. We have car bombings, organized crime, and now we have protests. The Hamas actually advocated we should have protests.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have tolerated it.
Wait a sec. You wouldn't have tolerated, meaning you would have not allowed them to gather?
Absolutely, like France did, because why should people adhere to a terrorist group? Anybody that's showing up to the protest today, that means they're supporting the Hamas. And there's no, we have to put our priorities and ideology aside and look at it with common sense.
But the argument, you as well as everybody else.
The charter.
Peaceful protests, democratic country, unless this crosses the line into hate and fear-mongering, they should be allowed to protest.
Well,
that's the opinion here.
People celebrating the loss of life, I find very difficult to comprehend. People like
it is, but it's still under our laws. You have the right to peaceful protest.
You're absolutely right.
And in Montreal, I understand you don't even need a permit to protest, right?
We
You can
have
just
to
show
give
up.
them theoretically the location where it's going to be held.
But that's all.
In theory.
The Corner Booth podcast is brought to you in part by the Snowden Delicatessen, where we are. 75 years in business, the hub of Montreal's greatest smoked meat, plus carnotzel, potato latkes, and the famous Snowden Deli party sandwiches. That's the Snowden Delicatessen.
In all your years, I don't know, watching images on TV, both sides. I mean, civilians getting killed, but the butchery like inside Israel. I mean, I don't even. How do you deal with something like you've seen some horrific things in your day? Have you ever seen anything quite like
We've
this?
seen people massacred or beheaded in Montreal, but committed by psychotics, psychopaths. But this is a war that's not going to end next week. It's going to cross borders, and there's cells all over the Western world. And I don't want to put. I'm not a fear-monger, but people have to be vigilant and continue going with their lives. But at the same time, have the notion of fear. That's when you're much more aware and you're much more perceptive of what's going on. Report anything that seems to be unusual in the neighborhood. Don't be shy, don't be hesitant, and call the authorities. And that's the only way we'll increase the presence of policing, is if people call 911, they'll realize, listen, we don't have enough staff.
So it's not a matter of letting things go. You should report it when you can, because that will ultimately help.
Absolutely.
I want to go back to what you said a minute ago, because that's a bit of a startling comment. You said Montreal is out of control as far as crime is concerned.
Crime is rampant.
I was going to say, it seems like it's been very quiet of late, on a much lighter note, but not so much.
Why do you say it's out of control?
Well, we have the car bombings, the arson. Traditional organized crime has been quiet, but there's a phenomenon in Montreal that's occurring, is that people don't report crime. It's been so difficult. It's so difficult to report crime. Even a car break-in, or somebody tried to break into your house, police take 2-3 hours, or they'll ask you to go to a community police station, which is closed after 7 o'clock at night. And I hope with this crisis that's going on, they're going to reopen the police stations. That should be number one priority.
What do you mean reopen the police?
Well, they're closed at night. After 7,
After.
they're closed. So you have an elderly person walking the street. She'll go to the door, or he, and the door's closed. So I think they should reopen the police stations. It's also a shelter for the elderly, for everybody, every citizen, resident of this city. That's the first step. And reaching out to the community. I don't think citizens or residents of Hampstead, Outremont have to beg the police for security. Or they've hired private security companies. If you would talk to a European, they would say this is totally ridiculous.
And this is interesting. I wasn't aware of this until you mentioned this. So you're talking about now about hiring private security. People are scared. People are anxious. You hire a private security person because you want to, make sure that everything is going to be okay where you are. You told me that in Quebec, is this Canada or Quebec? In Canada, that security person is not allowed to carry a gun, but if you're transporting money in this country and you hire security, they can carry a gun.
Right. So you have companies, I won't mention, well, we all know them, Brinks, whatever, Securitas, their agents carry weapons to protect
Money.
Valuable goods,
Right.
Money. However, if you have to protect human life, permanent scar tissue. This only happens in Canada. In Europe, private security agencies carry weapons, and they're trained. Obviously, training comes with that.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
That said, you were talking about it's very organized crime-wise. It's been quiet, but you say there's a reason for that.
Well, the SQ, they have a turncoat, an informant, that's giving him information on over 50 crimes. He was a hitman for organized crime and other groups. So they're all staying low, wondering what's he going to testify on. So the chain, one of the links has been detached. And so they're worried. Obviously, if you have information from an informant, it's not absolute. You need corroborating evidence. So in the near future, you see people disappearing because they're worried there other people are going to jump on the bandwagon and help this individual testify in court. So right now, regarding traditional organized crime, everybody's on a standstill, even though we had a few murders in the summer. regarding street gangs and carbo, that's a different story. And let us not forget, with this turmoil, this war that's going on, this massacre, organized crime will take advantage of this. They know that all the resources will be going to other places to protect. And
Wow, I'd even thought of that. So you're
Yeah, it's
suggesting
very good point,
because of
yes.
that's an opportunity for organized crime to step it up.
flourish, to step it up. And you'll see more and more of that. So I think our politicians and our leaders in law enforcement have to be proactive. And I was disappointed, I must say, that our police chief didn't come out publicly and reassure the public. Yes, he did meet with the community leaders, but community leaders don't talk, don't express really what they want to say to everybody, to their population.
So
That's
when
the
you're
role
saying
of
didn't
police.
come out, you mean with respect to what's going on right now?
That's right. The demonstrations of he should be coming out and advising and warning the people that the police are there, and if anybody breaks the law, well, they'll pay the consequences. They'll be arrested.
It's interesting. We haven't seen that. We haven't really seen the Montreal police say much of anything beyond the police chief. I mean, in terms of warning people we're going to tolerate this, they just show up. They're there. We know they're there. When there was a Hamas protest in front of the Israeli embassy, a couple of days ago.
Yes, there was
but
one
then yesterday. There was
one-
nobody there when there was another
You saw the
protest.
video images of kicking in windows and glass
That's right.
and so on. Not a police presence inside.
To your
Sign
point,
it.
where the police should be more proactive instead of being so reactive.
And that's an obvious place.
The chief should come out publicly and put his foot down and put aside the hat of community policing and goody two shoes and warn people that if anybody breaks the law, the strong arm will come out.
Now, what about the mayor?
The mayor is, she's there because of votes. And it's a multicultural city, so I guess she has to weigh what she says, how she says it, camouflage every word, because thinking of the next election. Thus, it's the role of the police chief to express his opinion when it comes to law and order.
Peace and love, the mayor says. Because that'll work.
And another thing we'll see, people have finally realized that health and security are the main issues in society.
How much sway in our municipal government, from what you know, does the mayor actually have over the police? So you mentioned funding being cut, obviously not a good time, but never is a good time to be doing that. But what's that relationship?
It's direct. The mayor appoints the police chief. It's rubber stamped by Quebec, but it's the mayor who decides who the chief is going to be. Unfortunately, our
But does she
system-
have influence, per
Absolutely,
se?
absolutely.
Because a lot of people, to Aaron's point, wonder, who's really in charge?
The police chief is basically a token of the mayor. It's just
And you have a situation in this city. We've gone through a few police chiefs, including one now who's suing the city. That relationship has been fraught for a long time.
yeah. The roles aren't defined, aren't clearly defined. That's based on our Canadian laws and provincial, because the provinces that take care of the administration of justice. But I personally believe that there should be anonymous CVs when electing or appointing a police chief, and get the right person for the right job. I think Fadi Daguerre is great. He's great, but unfortunately, for difficult times like we're going through,
He's not there.
he's not.
Well, he hasn't been there up until now, is what you're saying.
And
That's
are the
right.
police aligned with the SQ and the RCMP here, as well as
Yes, if they ask for their assistance, they will be there.
in situations like this?
Absolutely. When it comes to a Stanley, any game, I hope they contacted the SQ. They did. I'm sure of that, and the RCMP. But I think in this instance, because it won't stop tonight, it won't stop tomorrow, I think we need the assistance of a presence. It might offend certain people of the military.
So detail that. This is not going to end in a day or two or a week. I think most of us understand that. That's certainly been the message. What should the city, what should police be doing now, realizing that this is going to be a long-term issue? What should the action be right now? What should they be doing?
Well, presence, visibility, presence, in contact with various religious synagogues, mosques, and reassure the public being seen at all times during religious ceremonies or days of prayer, and being close, reassuring the public that they're there, going knock on.
You know, it's
doors.
worrisome that they had to, the Jewish General Hospital had to go on like high alert.
High alert.
That,
A hospital.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's got to be very worrisome.
It is worrisome. And if they took that step, the administration of the Jewish General, there's a reason for it.
Well, they're saying there's no credible threat. They haven't received a credible threat.
What is a
They're
credible
being,
threat?
Well, okay, but they're being overly cautious, which is not a bad idea
Not a
given
bad idea.
the
I
times
agree.
we're in right now.
Yeah. I agree but we've got to analyze information. Every threat should be taken serious in this period. Every threat.
And you think sometimes we don't do that?
I don't think we do that. No, we don't have the resources, and like Mr. Brownstein mentioned before, I think people don't realize the notion of defunding the police is right out the window. We're going to see more and more priority based on law enforcement. The world has changed. There's no question about it.
I guess we can leave it at that. Pietro Paletti, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always appreciate you being here. That wraps up another edition of the Corner Booth podcast here at the Montreal Gazette, and we'll see you soon.